Let me share a story that might change the way you look at that spare change jingling in your pocket. A seemingly ordinary 1996 Washington quarter, one of the billions struck that year, can carry a twist of minting drama or the sheen of a gem-quality strike that sends its value soaring into three-figure territory and beyond. That little coin bridges centuries of U.S. minting history, harbors tales of experimental planchets and die cracks, and quietly fetches hundreds or even thousands of dollars when the right collector spots it. Stick around, because the first coin on our roster isn't just an everyday quarter. It's a gateway into the fascinating world of modern errors, condition rarities, and auction thrills. The story of this 1996 quarter truly begins not in 1996, but in the mid-1990s, when plans were laid for a sweeping new commemorative series. While the Washington quarter design dates back to 1932, Congress took fresh aim at the humble 25-cent piece with legislation in October 1996 that authorized a feasibility study for what would become the 50-state quarters program. That study, completed in 1997, confirmed that Americans would embrace state-themed designs, and by 1999, the Mint was issuing 5 new state quarters each year, ordered by ratification or admission. The groundwork for that success, however, lay in the mid-90s push led by the Citizens Commemorative Coin Advisory Committee and by advocates like Representative Michael Castle of Delaware. Although the first state quarters didn't arrive until 1999, 1996 quarters like our Washington issue carried the classic obverse portrait of George Washington, modified slightly over time. But, in circulation, they remained virtually unnoticed until error hunters and grade seekers began to scrutinize them. At first glance, the 1996 Washington quarter seems unremarkable. A dignified bust of Washington on the obverse, a heraldic eagle clutching arrows and olive branch on the reverse, and a tiny P, or D, mint mark signaling Philadelphia or Denver. Yet hidden beneath that familiar surface are variations and mishaps that transform a common pocket coin into a prize worthy of museum display. One of the most eye-catching faults is the missing clad layer error, where the silvery cupronickel outer layer peeled or failed to bond, exposing the bright copper core in blotches or even across an entire face. A coin showing copper on one side and silver on the other feels like a magic trick you can hold in your hand. Other prized mishaps include misstrikes on the wrong planchet. Nickel blanks or even dime planchets have shown up bearing Washington's visage, leading to off-metal pieces that fetch strong premiums. Die cap errors occur when a loose die fragment or cap traps grease, producing ghostly, doubled impressions and raised rims that can resemble a miniature lunar landscape. Collectors have affectionately nicknamed one variety Black Beauty when a heavy die crack crosses Washington's lip, giving him an impromptu mustache that no founding father ever sported. Then there are the spiked head specimens, where slivers of planchet burr cling to the rim, creating a crown of spikes that only a jeweler's loupe can fully reveal. Beyond errors, pure condition rarities command attention. In 1996, the Mint churned out coins intended for circulation, not cabinet-worthy gems. Yet a handful escaped with flawless surfaces, sharp strikes, and full cartwheel luster. In grading parlance, an MS-68 or MS-69 survivor is akin to finding a perfect snowflake in a heat wave. At auction in late 2012, a business strike 1996, P-quarter graded MS-68 nearly doubled its pre-sale estimate to bring close to $2,000, a stark contrast to the quarter's face value of 25 cents. That same high grade for a Denver-minted specimen sold for $447 in 2013. By today's standards, with a few more certified examples surfacing, the estimate for MS-68 hovers near $360. But every coin has its own personality, and those with cleaner surfaces or deeper strikes can outshine the catalog value. When you shift from pristine pieces to error coins, the story grows even more compelling. A dual missing clad layer quarter graded MS-63 can attract bids between $1,000 and $5,000, depending on how dramatically the copper peeks through and whether both sides display the anomaly. Even more modestly dramatic, a single-side missing reverse-clad error in MS-63 trades near $79 among dealers, making it one of the more attainable entry points into error coin collecting. It's easy to overlook that these quarters were never intended as collectibles. They rolled off presses designed for speed, not spectacle. That makes every error find feel like a personal victory. Consider the late cap die error. When the die cap holding lubricant fails, grease seeps into the die recesses, and subsequent strikes produce ghostly raised areas on Washington's bust. There's an almost poetic justice in holding a coin that misbehaved in a factory built for conformity. On the collector forums, you'll find spirited debates about whether a given copper peel is a true mint error or post-mint damage. Photographs get posted, magnified, annotated, a virtual courtroom where experts parse edge characteristics, luster patterns, and metal flow. One veteran collector recalls purchasing a raw error piece for $50 on eBay, then watching in disbelief as it graded MS64 by PCGS and later sold for over $600 once slapped. Stories like that fuel the excitement. The idea that your casual pocket change might conceal a tiny fortune. Condition plays as big a role as error type. A fully circulated VF, 20-quarter, error-free or flawed, typically trades at face value plus $1 or $2, enough to cover dealer overhead. Slip into -50 Australian dollars or -58 Australian dollars territory, about uncirculated, and an error specimen might fetch $20 to $50. Move into mint state, and the premiums really kick in. An MS65 struck-through die quarter might sell for $55, whereas the same coin in MS67 Plus can soar above $360 when registry collectors compete for the top spot. At MS63, error coins might sit near $79, but at MS65, auctions regularly crack the $500 barrier, and when a CAC sticker, Certified Acceptance Corporation, endorses the eye appeal, prices can spike yet again. You don't have to chase only the highest grades to find excitement. Mid-grade error coins often exhibit character. A jagged copper patch here, a crescent of silver there, that high-grade survivors lack. Some collectors specialize in documenting every known error type for a single date/mint combination. For the 1996 P quarter, that might include missing obverse clad, missing reverse clad, struck-through die, die cap, double die, and planchet mix. For the 1996 D issue, seasoned specialists hunt for the same roster plus any unique die crack patterns exclusive to Denver's tooling. Beyond the technical thrill, there's a human side to these coins. At the 2012 Whitman Baltimore Expo, a young collector nervously presented a raw 1996 error quarter to a grading company's submission desk. When the coin returned as MS66RD, red, the teenager's jaw dropped, and by the end of the show, he'd traded that one coin for a set of state quarters he'd long coveted. Dealers still tell that tale as a rite of passage, the moment when a collector realizes that pocket change can hold real surprises. Regional differences add another layer. In the Northeast, where early state quarter collecting clubs first formed, error varieties were noted in local newspapers and fueled weekend swap meets. In the South, dabblers often overlooked modern errors, preferring pre-1930 rarities, which means error coin hunters sometimes find undervalued pieces in rolls pulled from circulation. Out west, where the Denver mint looms large, collectors pay special attention to mint quirks, like the slightly off-center strikes that occasionally produce a thin crescent of blank planchet at one edge. Next, we'll shift gears from the modern state quarter era back to the late 70s and spotlight the 1978 Washington quarter, an issue that, at first glance, seems even more routine but hides its own cache of errors, die varieties, and surprising auction results. That coin's journey takes us from post-bicentennial design tweaks through the rise of third-party grading, revealing a different facet of how Washington quarters have captivated collectors for nearly a century. Stay tuned. This journey through pocket change is only heating up. Now let's turn our attention to the 1978 Washington quarter, a coin that, on the surface, seems as ordinary as any other pocket change from the late 70s, yet conceals an undercurrent of missed strikes, die varieties, and subtle grade rarities that can surprise even seasoned collectors. In many ways, the 1978 issue sits at a crossroads, born into an era when mintages soared, yet caught just before the grading boom exploded demand for high-grade survivors. Below, you'll find everything you need to recognize the standout 1978 quarters, understand why some trade for hundreds or more, and appreciate the stories behind these unassuming 25-cent pieces. To understand the 1978 quarter, we need to recall its birthplace. In the wake of the U.S. bicentennial, the Philadelphia and Denver mints were running flat out to meet collector and circulation demand. The classic Washington design, originally created in 1932 by sculptor John Flanagan, remained in service, but the composition had shifted in 1965 from 90% silver to a copper-nickel clad that climbed in price alongside other base metal coinage. By 1978, nearly 2 decades had passed without major design changes, and billions of these clad quarters entered circulation. Yet behind that bland uniformity, mint technicians were constantly swapping dies, experimenting with lubrication, and pushing planchets through presses at remarkable speed, all conditions ripe for errors. At first glance, a 1978 quarter presents the familiar right-facing bust of Washington, the motto Liberty above, the date below, and on the reverse, the eagle with outstretched wings. Mint marks P or D appear just to the right of Washington's ponytail. What elevates some examples into the collector stratosphere are the rare die varieties and misstrike types hidden in plain sight. One of the most coveted is the double die obverse, a faint but unmistakable doubling of letters in Liberty or in the date. Under magnification, you'll see a ghost image that seems to float just off the primary letter, a vestige of a misaligned hub during die creation. Less dramatic to the naked eye, but equally prized, is the off-center strike. When the die and planchet aren't perfectly aligned, part of the design is clipped off, leaving a blank crescent at the rim. Even a 1 mm shift can transform a common quarter into a collectible rarity. Perhaps the quirkiest error is the broad strike variety. Here the collar that normally constrains the planchet during striking is missing or damaged, so the metal spreads out further than intended. The result is a slightly larger, thinner coin with soft detail at the peripheries, an oddball that can command $50 to $150 in mid-grades. Struck-through grease errors also appear with surprising frequency on 1978 quarters. When excess lubricant coats part of the die, the metal flows oddly, leaving smooth, featureless patches, ghostly voids amid the relief. Collectors refer to these as blanks within the design, and even modest examples in very fine or almost uncirculated grades can fetch $20 to $40. Auction records underscore the potential upside. A top-graded 1978 P quarter certified MS68 by PCGS sold for $1,150 at auction in 2014, a remarkable result for a coin most people spent on parking meters. Near that level, an MS67 Plus example realized $360 in 2017, reflecting strong registry competition for the sharpest survivors. Error pieces can top those numbers. A 1978 D off-center strike by 20% graded MS64 sold for $525 in 2016, while a broad strike 1978 P and EF 45 brought $95 in a small regional sale. Even within circulated grades, a VF 35 double die obverse changed hands for $110 on an online auction platform in 2019, proving that you don't need an MS designation to find value. Digging deeper, you'll encounter fascinating backstories. In the late 70s, the Denver Mint was experimenting with new die steels and lubricants to improve press throughput. That summer, technicians noted occasional die fractures near the date. These evolved into full die cracks by year's end, producing thin, raised lines that cut across the obverse. Collectors today call these the ice cracks and prize them for their spiderweb patterns. Meanwhile, at Philadelphia, a batch of planchets was slightly overannealed, resulting in softer strikes with muted details. Yet those pieces display a ghostly, mirrored surface that some enthusiasts prize as pearl luster varieties. Condition remains a critical value driver. In lower grades, G4 or VG8, a 1978 quarter is worth face value or a fraction above, unless it displays a bold error. In fine, F12, or very fine, VF20, error specimens might fetch $10 to $25, while standard strikes remain at a few dollars. Once you reach about uncirculated, -$50 Australian dollars to -$58 Australian dollars, The eye appeal of full original luster can push prices to $30 to $75, and error coins in AU grades often trade at premiums of 2 to 3 times that. In mint state, the curve steepens. MS-63 business strikes typically list for $80 to $120, MS-65 for $200 to $300, and the rare MS-67 Plus for $350 to $500, depending on surface quality and strike depth. Error and variety coins follow a similar pattern but with higher floors. An MS-64 double die might start at $250 and climb above $600 when demand peaks. Beyond grade and error type, provenance can add a human dimension. One notable specimen, a 1978 D double die obverse, passed from a paper money collector who found it in a paper roll in 1982 to a specialist dealer in the early 2000s, then onto a registry set where it remains the finest known example. That coin's journey, tracked through sale catalogs and grading census entries, illustrates how a single piece of pocket change can gain a narrative that collectors chase as much as the metal itself. Regional collecting trends add another twist. In the Midwest, where agricultural communities embraced coin roll hunting early on, 1978 quarter errors are comparatively plentiful but still undervalued. Dealers there often offer $15 to $20 for an off-center example that would fetch $40 to $50 in coastal markets. In the Northeast, strong state quarter enthusiasm spilled over to late 70s issues, driving up prices for broad strikes and double dies more than other regions. In the West, close proximity to the Denver Mint means mint errors attract particular attention. Enthusiasts scrutinize every rim for the faintest shift or crack. Collectors hunting 1978 quarters should start with good light, a loop, and a clear checklist of known varieties. Double die obverse, off-center by ranges, up to 5%, 5 to 15%, 15 to 25%, broad strike, struck through grease, die cracks, and rim planchet chips. Document each find with high-resolution photos and compare against online reference guides. When in doubt, submit to a reputable grading service. The peace of mind and market recognition often justify the submission fee for higher grade or dramatic error coins. Online marketplaces remain a double-edged sword. You'll see bold claims, rare 1978 quarter error, huge value. But photos can mislead. Always request unedited, unglare images of both sides and edge views. If a seller won't provide them, walk away. Conversely, raw coins purchased cheaply can surprise you when slabbed. A modestly priced off-center example bought for $30 might grade MS-63 and sell for $200 to $300 once certified. The trick is balancing risk and reward, focusing on well-documented error types and established grade tiers. Next, in our conclusion, we'll tie together the themes from both the modern 1996 state quarter era and these late 70s issues, exploring what unites error hunters across generations and how the thrill of uncovering value in pocket change continues to captivate collectors of all ages.